Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. Um, I'm so excited to have this amazing conversation with Dr. Dain here called Wealth Really. And here's Dain. Welcome, Dain.
Hello. I had to go in my hotspot.
Did ya?
What a hotspot.
We were saying that you were frozen and we needed to unthaw you before you came on.
Exactly.
So,
That's apparently what was happening.
yeah. So, Dane, I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. And, wealth is something that I think in access consciousness and the way that I've learned about wealth from you is something that's really, really different than the way that the rest of the world defines wealth. And so I would love to learn about the way that you see wealth and how we can create that, but based on being ourselves and having more of us in our lives.
Well, let's look at it from this perspective. True wealth is the willingness to receive everything with no point of view. And within that, then, because that looks a lot different than what most people think. And so within that, then you get to choose your own adventure. But wealth is a lot more than money. And yet a lot of people are stuck lately, especially with, sorry, I'm trying to turn off my and I just updated my operating system, so I'm trying to turn off my my notifications, and I have no
Everything
idea
is
how.
on.
It's like, hmm, okay, let's try making things not beep. Good luck. Um, but true wealth is a willingness to receive anything with no point of view. And so people have thought wealth is about money, but I know a lot of people with a lot of money who have very little personal wealth. They're
Mhm.
very little wealth of their being. And if you recognize that wealth is actually a function of your being, it's not a function of your bank account, it really kind of probably makes your head go for a minute. But if you're willing to, because you have a choice. See, I can say something, and if it doesn't match your box of reality, then you can just reject it or take what I'm saying and compress it into your box. Or you could consider the possibility that what I'm inviting you to do is expand your box so that your box of reality gets larger after this conversation. And the people who have true wealth, one of their fundamental characteristics is when they receive something different or new, they let their box expand. And this is, if we did that in every area of life, we would have a wealth of being and a wealth of living that most people can't even fathom. And I don't know, here's the other weird part to me is, you know, like take any billionaire you can think of. About 99% of them would never expand their box of reality. Why? Because they have what this reality says is the answer. They have the money that is the solution. And I'm really inviting you all to a different perspective that makes it not about the money. Because there's a secret about money. It's never about the money.
Mhm.
It's only about what you're willing to receive. And the more you're willing to receive, the more money can show up too, because if you're an open book and an open door, everything can come in. And then all you have to do is be willing to have money too. And so there's a lot of conversations within this, obviously, but let's just start there to break people's brains
Yeah.
apart.
I love that. I think it's so great. And one of the ways that one of the things that you teach that's taught me a lot about having wealth is having gratitude. Like, if I have an upset with somebody, it's like I've been teaching myself to go into gratitude, which taps me into the wealth of the relationship, and then the upset just goes away. And I just think that gratitude is such a powerful way to start moving towards the wealth that you're talking about.
No, brilliant. And absolutely brilliant. And I want to make another point about that also for a moment. First, I want to suggest that everybody start a gratitude list.
Mm.
Start right now and write down one thing you're grateful for on your
Mm.
phone, on a piece of paper. There's this thing called paper. I don't know if you've heard of it, but apparently it was all the rage a few hundred years ago. Um,
Stop.
anyway, um, just write down one thing you're grateful for and add at least one thing to it every single day, or maybe three. Okay. One thing, one person, and one thing you're grateful for about you. So one in each category. Um, but because here's what we want to recognize about this. Like you were talking about, I find, sorry, I don't want you to think I have OCD, but I'm like a degree off. That just was not working for me. Okay. Um, Welcome to my world. Okay. See, but I'm willing to receive what works for me and how I actually am and not have a point of view about it, right? Which is helpful, especially when you're as weird as I am. So, what you're doing, and I want to address the specific thing you talked about. I'll be in an upset with someone or something, and when I choose gratitude, it melts it all. Well, so what happens in an upset is some projection or expectation or point of view is not being met, or some fixed point of view that you have is being projected at you, and that button is being pushed. And
Mm.
receiving is having no buttons to push. Like true receiving, if somebody, true receiving is this. We think receiving is aligning and agreeing. Aligning and agreeing is when you make something real. And when you make something real, you've now made it real. So true receiving is not what we thought. So I'll give you an example based on what you said that I think everybody can relate to, which
Hmm.
is you have an upset with somebody. So let's say somebody goes, "Oh my God, you're such a jerk." Well, true receiving is letting the energy come in and go through wherever it needs to go. You don't have any walls or barriers to it, meaning you don't have to prove you're not a jerk. You don't have to prove you are a jerk. You don't have to align and agree and go, oh my God, that must be true. You don't have to resist and react and go, oh my God, that's not true. You just go, oh, okay. Thank you very much. That's receiving. The other is something that we call acceptance, which is positive or negative polarity. So if somebody goes, you're a jerk, and you're doing the positive polarity, that's when you're aligning and agreeing with that point of view. You're basically in your world going, oh, that must be true because they're saying it. And then if you ever find yourself resisting or reacting or fighting against something, it's because you've already made it real and true. Because if you hadn't, there wouldn't be anything to resist. And so most people, so I realize this to me sounds like, in my mind, it's like basic kindergarten consciousness, but I do realize in a lot of people's heads, they're like, what did you just say?
Yeah.
Well, let me run through the whole thing again. The choice you have when somebody goes, you're a jerk, is to either receive it or reject it. If you reject it, you're not only rejecting that, but you're rejecting money from your life. You're rejecting happiness, you're rejecting love, because the universe doesn't, when you go into rejection, you reject everything, which is weird because we keep trying to judge the things to reject and the things to accept. But if you're doing rejection or resistance to something, the only way you can do that is by rejecting everything. Which
Mhm.
is why, if you've ever had an argument with somebody and you're in your upset mode, somebody's like, "Oh my God, I love you so much," and you're like, "I hate you and everyone and everything. Get away from me and please die." You know, because you're in that rejection mode. True wealth is not rejecting anything or anyone for any reason. Okay. True wealth is where your being gets to walk through the world and perceive everything, know everything, be everything, and receive everything. If you do that, your money situation will change dynamically. Because as Gary Douglas told me 25 years ago, there's no such thing as a money problem. There's only a problem with what you're willing to receive. So if you're willing to receive the things that push your buttons without having your buttons pushed, you will eventually get over having buttons to push. When you no longer have any buttons to push, money is simply a matter of ask and you shall receive. And wealth is already yours.
Wow. You're talking about a very, very different game than a very different world than how do I get my credit cards paid off? How do I do this? How do I buy that? It's like this is a whole different way of functioning that you're inviting us to.
Yeah, it truly is. And I can understand if people are like, this it does not compute, or this is not what I signed up for, you know, um, because we think that the answer to whatever problem we have is going to and should make sense. But that's not receiving. Receiving is I will receive whatever information you have and see where it lands in my world. I'll see what part of it contributes and what doesn't. And I'll actually expand my box.
Yeah. Wow. That's beautiful. Wow. So for you, like, what are some of the ways? So we're talking about gratitude. What are some of the other ways that you started to walk into this way of being in the world and the receiving that you're talking about? Like, what did you do to change things that other people could take away?
Well, one of the biggest is I realized if I had a problem with anyone or anything, it was a button that I had that was being pushed.
Mm.
So I made a demand. I am no longer going to be a child of consciousness where I let my panties get in a knot because somebody did something that creates an upset. If I'm upset about anything, I am going to change it. Now I'm going to change it because that's the way I would like to live. I would like to have nothing upset me ever again. And I've had things that some people would be like, how do you even still keep breathing? How do you survive? It's so stressful. I'm like, yeah, it is to you, and it used to be to me too. But what I did was one of the big things that got me there was actually working on the angsty stuff in my friendship with my friend Gary
Mhm.
because, we've been roommates for 25 years, and we fight like an old married couple when we fight. So, is it any surprise people think we're probably secretly together? And, it's like, I'm like, yes, he's my husband and I'm his emotional support animal. There you go.
Exactly.
You know? But when you live with somebody, as no matter who you are and what, those are the people that push your buttons the most. And yet we let it happen. We think to ourselves, well, if they would just change this, if they would just, you know, if they would just contribute to the kitchen work, if they would just, stop spending this, if they would just stop doing this, then I wouldn't have these problems in my world. No, once you get over your problems, they're going to stop doing the thing that pisses you off. And even if they do it, it's not going to be upsetting to you. So what I
True.
did is I went, okay, if I got a problem here, I'm going to look at it. And if any of you know Gary, one of his greatest capacities is to push your buttons. That's that's like his whole reason for existing, consciousness and pushing people's buttons. You know what I mean? It's awesome if you look at it. And if you choose to take it as a gift and be grateful for it, then you can go, wow, if he's able to get me to go into reaction, I must have a button. But what most people do is if I'm going into reaction, you did it, it's your fault, you're wrong. Why am I so upset? I hate that you keep making me this upset. And I tried that game for a long time too until I realized it wasn't any fun. I wasn't having the wealth of my being in those situations. And so what happened is the next upset that came up, I went, okay, because I realized I was told something a long time ago when I started Access Consciousness.
Mhm.
And it was if you have a judgment of something, it's because you've been there and done it.
Mm.
And I was like, what? And then I saw, of course, hundreds of thousands of examples of where people were doing that, and because the other thing that you try to do with your judgment of something is separate from where you're doing the exact same thing. But the truth is, you're actually judging you and at least some part of it. So, anyway, so here I am. I'm like, you know what? I got to change this. I got to. And so Gary did one of Gary's things that used to frustrate the shit out of me. And I know people out there like, what? Excuse me, you're not perfect. I know it is so surprising. I know totally. No, but I also never claimed to be. So there's that also. Okay. I'm just doing my best. And I got an amazing set of tools to use so I can get more choice and enjoy life more, which is also true wealth. More choice and enjoying life more. So anyway, I realized I wasn't enjoying life in these areas. And so one thing came up where he was like, he did his thing. He was just being Gary. And I just came unglued in my own world because I won't overtly get upset at most people because my whole life I've known it probably isn't about them, but I didn't know what to do. So I got invertly upset and twisted like we do a lot of
Mm.
times and had this sort of separation and resentment. And then I went,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, so I'm gonna pock and pod where I was that, meaning undo where I was that. Because I have that choice. What if every single thing that comes up that pushes your buttons is a gift to get you to more awareness? You
Yep.
got to choose it because it's really easy to just go with the reality of judgment that you learned. You got to choose it. But what if everything that currently creates an upset is a venue and a vehicle for more awareness? And what if more awareness is synonymous with more consciousness? And what if more consciousness is the way to access the wealth of your being? It is. That's why this consciousness thing is so amazing. And if we had a world of people who truly were being them and had the had that the wealth of their being was a gift, how different would the world be?
Mm.
It would be the world we all know is possible.
Wow. It's so
So
amazing.
I had this upset and I went, okay, everywhere I've done that and been that, I now destroy and uncreate it, pock and pod. And then a new awareness came into my world. Where am I still doing that right now that I'm not acknowledging? And I went, okay, everything that is, destroy and uncreate it, pock and pod. Holy shitballs, Batman. The missing element for me was that if you have that much charge, you don't have that much charge about something, that much upset, that much anger, that much resistance. If you're not actively doing it somewhere in your world and not acknowledging it, it doesn't occur randomly. These things that upset us don't occur randomly. So I did that, and all of a sudden I got this lightness, whereas before it felt like my entire world was filled with all these sort of like black holes, you know, and broken glass. And all of a sudden they just went, and I was like, whoa. And I thought of Gary for a moment. I'm like, wow, I just have total gratitude for him. Wait a minute, but it can shift that fast. That's one of the beautiful things about access is it can shift that fast. Now, a lot of people watching, we created a live about wealth, and a lot of people are like, yeah, but show me how to make money. I am, because it's not about making money, it's about no longer rejecting receiving money. And every upset you allow yourself to stay in is a rejection of receiving. And the universe and you don't know how to reject specific energies. The only thing you can do is put up an energetic wall and barrier to keep it all out.
Wow.
So if you're willing to receive more, you can also then ask to receive more money. And
Wow.
then here's the other weird part is when it's no longer about money is the source and it's no longer about I have all these upsets that money will solve, then you can see what your actual points of view are about money. And if any of those are limiting you, then you can actually see them for what they are. As long as you're blaming money as the source of your problems, you're rejecting the money you could receive, but money is never a source of your problem. It's your points of view around money and your points of view around receiving and your points of view about money and other things where you're rejecting receiving. Everything that is, all of y'all. And if you didn't hear it, listen again until you understand what I am saying. Because I would be very surprised if any of you have actually heard the totality of what I've said here. Right now, in this, you are getting a free masterclass on receiving and money and wealth. And are there many other topics? Yes. But this one, mm, is so
Mhm.
big, and we haven't been able to address it this way before, which is one of the things I'm excited about. We're
Yeah.
actually getting to what will work to change these things in a way that's totally different.
Yeah. And you're also teaching us the short game and the long game just in this conversation. You know,
Yeah,
it's 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 a different functionality. And like for me, like what you're also talking about is allowance. And allowance is like it gets such a it's just I think it's the sexiest thing and it gets it has the unsexiest reputation. Like nobody's interested. And I've been reading so Gary, who you've been talking about, your roommate for the past 25 years and the creator of Access, co-creator of Access Consciousness, he wrote this book called The Gift of Allowance. And I've been reading it and reading it and reading it. I think I'm on my ninth time. And because it just like is like ripping me apart. Like it's like chunks of points of view are coming off of me with every reading. And it's definitely increased the wealth that I've been able to be and have. But I just, we're talking about gratitude and not having your buttons pushed. And I think you are really talking about allowance and just like the type of person you can become, the being that is possible if you are willing um, to embrace that allowance and become the allowance that you actually are.
beautifully put. An allowance is where everything is an interesting point of view.
Mhm. Thank
There
you.
is no resistance. There is no alignment and agreement. There is no judgment. There is no wrong. There is no right. Everything is an interesting point of view. So, and I'm really glad you brought that up because I want to make two other points. I hope I remember both. The first is for any point of view you take, you're creating a limitation.
Boom.
Any point of view, period. You're like, yeah, but I have good points of view and bad points of any point of view. Because if you look at it, it's even in the word point of view. You compress you to this and then relate to the rest of the world from this tiny speck as though
Mm.
it's you. And it functions as though it's you because that's the choice you're making. So, so there's that. And one of the other things I want to say, especially in addressing the money element of wealth, is for the humanoids, the seekers of the world, the how do I put it? Ooh, hold on, I need to plug something in because oh, it's plugged in. Okay, good. Um, for the humanoids, the seekers of the world, this reality has all kinds of stuff it will try to sell you on how to create more money, how to make more money, how to do more money, how to get more money, how to steal more money,
Oh
how to
man.
save more money, how to and for humanoids, for you guys watching this, especially if you haven't turned it off so far, there is something different. There's a different way of being with money and creating money. There's something different that does not work in messed reality, matter, energy, space, and time. And messed is this reality around us that looks so real and everybody seems to be buying into it, but It's the reality of everything that does not work for you or anybody else that people keep doing over and over again. Okay. And so that reality, this way of functioning where time and matter, where it's about the time you put in and the effort and how much you make things matter and how significant you make them in order to create something different, it's not how we truly function. So, to that extent, we have been trying to use a reality that does not work to create something that seems to be really important, really necessary, really essential, called money, but we're using the wrong tools
Hmm.
for ourselves. Those are not the tools that work for us. The tools we're talking about right now, and we've done, a tiny portion of, this works because it increases the presence of your being in your life. And people are like, I don't know what being is. I'm like, well, nobody does because you can't define it. But it's what you are when you have no thought, feeling, and emotion, when you have no judgment, when you have a sense of peace, you have a sense of ease, there's a sense of space and aliveness, no one and nothing is wrong. And you're
Hmm.
willing to receive anything from anyone. You don't have to
Yeah.
have a point of view.
One of,
You're in a line and you're like, okay, I'm in a line. You're in traffic, you're like, okay, I'm in traffic.
yeah,
You know, your mother-in-law calls, you're like, oh, my mother-in-law is calling. It's just like everything is. And people think somehow they're going to be bored, but that's where everything is. And it gets to be what it is, which is the place where you're receiving it as it is, not believing it's your job to control it and change it. Because how much have you made yourself wrong for not being able to control and change everything and everyone as though that's somehow your job?
totally.
You're not
Totally.
God, dum dum. Everything that it, well, anyway, I won't, I know how some of you have points of view that you should be, and I maybe you should, maybe the world would be better if you were, but you're not. It's not your job to control everything and everyone. All you got to do is navigate what's out there and stop trying to control everything and everyone into what you've decided would be a better way to be, and instead choose to be that which you can be that would be better for you, and stop trying to impose on everybody else, and then have more fun than you're supposed to.
Hmm. Yeah. One of the one of the ways that for me being me shows up is I used to feel like everything was outside of me. Like there was almost some invisible wall that was around me. And I just was like, I just felt like I was missing out on something. Like there was something that was off. Like I wasn't included in the world in some way. I just couldn't fit. I couldn't figure out how to not feel isolated. And what you're talking about is like the thing that changed it for me. It's like somehow using the tools of access consciousness and doing what you're talking about, it's like I I feel like included in my life. I feel in communion with the people around me. I feel like well and whole and like there's always a lot going on and a lot of possibilities and a lot of like it's just it's like I'm there like and everything else is there too. And I don't know if it's I'm explaining it right, but it was like everything used to just feel so unreachable and so far away, whether it was relationships, money, like cool possibilities, just life. And I think that's something that a lot of us have is this thing where we just don't feel included and we just feel like everything is hard to get to in some weird, unexplainable way.
Yeah, it's as though it's behind some plexiglass. It's like, I know it should
Yeah.
be, but it's over there on the other side of the plastic wall.
Exactly.
You look around, you're like, am I in like some Hunger Games shit that nobody told me I was in? Like, what the fuck is going on here? Who told me
Exactly.
this was my life? You know?
Exactly. And it's
You start
like
to,
just
so I'm
being
curious. Sorry, go ahead.
no, just being included is like, oh, but it's me having included myself.
Boom. No one can exclude you if you don't. No one can reject you if you don't. I had a lady ask me the other day about her issues with rejection. And I said, sweetie, nobody can reject you if you don't. It's like, what do I do? I said, well, ask yourself, where am I rejecting me that I'm not acknowledging? And
Mm.
what part of me am I rejecting that I'm not acknowledging? And what part of me am I not valuing that I'm not acknowledging? And she did that for a little bit and she got back to me. She was like, oh my goodness. She's like, this has been a life theme for me. She's like, I've been rejecting everything that makes me valuable to me, trying to do what I'm supposed to for other people, trying to get, basically, she was trying to get to the other side of the plexiglass by
Mhm.
rejecting everything that anybody else had as a point of view of what she shouldn't be. And I was like, well, if you're not willing to be, if you're only trying to be what others desire you to be, whew, that's really tough to create your life under those conditions.
Totally. That is.
I'm curious for you, my dear. So, what was one, if you could tell people, one either awareness you had or one sort of direction you decided to head in or choice you made to
Mm.
get to that place where you're actually starting to be included in your life?
I mean, I mean, I just work the tools. I mean, all of the tools. But I think that one of the things really is this thing of allowance. Like I was like, okay, I don't even like the sound of the word allowance. Like at that time, like I was like, don't even like what is that? I don't like it doesn't even mean anything. It was such a weird word and um but I really realized it's like I just knew from listening to you and Gary and the tools and just seeing the changes in you guys and everything that you were creating in the world. I was just like, I want to be like that. I remember when I was, because I started Access Consciousness in my second year of college. So I was 19 and I just was like, this is stuff is phenomenal and I wanted to just go out and do it. And I worked a lot of jobs and I saved a lot of money and I started going to classes all over the world with you and Gary. And what I really had the point of view of is like, I I saw the way that you and Gary were being when I went to those classes, and I was just like, I've never seen anything like this before. Like, I've never been exposed to this level of happiness. And at that time, I was going to be a professor of sociology, was my chosen career, and
Ooh,
a
that would have been
politician.
happy.
Yeah.
And a politician.
And
Wow,
a
two happy careers. Awesome.
and, and I was like, I want to be right and I want to be academic. And what's going to make me look the smartest and the best? Those things, especially to my family, you know? And I saw my professors and I was like, they don't look very well. Like, this is not a good situation. And so there was one day where I was like, what kind of future do I want? Do I want to keep doing this thing that doesn't feel like me and doesn't bring me happiness, but is the right choice by my family? Or do I want to do this thing where it seems like there's just so much true kindness and joy going on all the time at these access classes? And I was 19, so it wasn't like I had really invested much into my career at all. So I just switched. And I was like, I want to do this and I want to facilitate this. And so I think I just made the choice for happiness and I just kept choosing towards happiness. And I've been hoeing a long road, not as long as you, but it's been a long road to hoe. And it's just really this thing of going, okay, allowance. Like I have to have allowance for the type of creature that I am because I'm not the same kind of creature that I've seen around me. And I don't think that those people even know what type of creature they are. And so it's just been this quest to find out, like, what am I and what makes me happy? And how can I be the kindness and the greatness and the inclusion that I am? I mean, I think inclusion has been something that's been hard for me because I wanted to be the best and I wanted to be the top cheerleader and I wanted to have the top grade and be Miss Perfect. And so it's like there's no inclusion in that. So it's like I really took hold of this tool of allowance and was like, I've got to learn this. I've got to learn this. I it was like looking, it was like Dracula looking at the sun, and I was like, I don't know. I don't think it's a good idea. And it's like, but I just kept towards it. And so I've done a lot of clearings on allowance. I've done a lot of work with the five elements of intimacy. So I would just say like in my life, it's like I have to get to allowance of myself and other people. But you get to allowance of other people, as you said, when you have allowance for yourself.
When you
So
get to allowance by choosing allowance,
exactly. Yeah.
because one of the other elements of wealth is knowing that you are the source.
Mm.
And not the way this reality tells you, because this reality tells you you're the source of the problems, you're the solution for the problems. Basically, it's kind of like this. If you look at your childhood, everybody gave you the job to solve everybody's problems, but they wouldn't let you do your job. And what a weird thing. Why did we all get that as the humanoids? I talked to almost every friggin' person, and I'm like, how many of you were given the job to solve all of your family's problems? And they go, how many of you were allowed to do the job? Nobody ever raises their hand. And so we're still trying to do a job that we were given a long time ago that we shouldn't have been given, that doesn't actually work, that they wouldn't allow us to do. And we don't realize that that is one of the major sources of us not being an allowance. And thank you so much for telling that, because it's like, I think so many people can relate to having some perfect image of what they were supposed to do. But most of us are never asked, what would you really like to do? There's another element of wealth is actually when you realize you're the one calling the shots, when you're the one choosing to create your life, living, and future. And if we had allowance, we had happiness, and we had being an adult of consciousness, uh, how much easier would everything get? How much more true wealth would you have, and how much more money would you have with ease?
Yeah, and I think that like what you said about true wealth, knowing that you can is knowing, or one of the tenets of true wealth is knowing that you can call the shots in your life. That's the only reason we want to have millions of dollars anyway, is because we
Right?
think that's the only way that we can call the shots. But we need to call the shots first. We need to be the leader in our own life first, and then all that stuff can show up.
True story. And we think somehow money will give us power,
Yeah.
but money doesn't give you power. It's the power you're refusing right now that you've decided money will give you. Like you said, and like we both said, what if you chose? What power have you decided that only money will give you, that money can't give you, that you can choose now? Right and wrong, good and bad, POD and POC, all 100, shorts, boys, poveds, spacies, creations, and beyond. Oh, baby. I don't
Wow.
know about you, but I think we pretty much fried people.
I think that we have done what we came here to do today.
Like drop an atom bomb into people's heads and press the red button. Thank
Your specialty.
you very much. So
Yeah.
here's the thing is that we have this conversation is different and more direct than we've ever been able to have before.
Hmm.
But that's the whole idea with wealth really is like really? Like is it really time to finally have wealth? And is it really time to finally, because let's face it, in this reality, a part of wealth is money too.
Hmm.
But once again, and we all know a lot of people with a lot of money who have very little wealth.
Hmm.
I also know a lot of people with very little money who have a lot of fucking wealth. And those people, it's like I desire to emulate and be more like. And it's not about the money. Some of you would really like a lot more money. Well, guess what? I would like you to have a lot more money too if you would like it. The only way it's not going to work very well for you as a humanoid if you're making that the source and making that the source of solving your problems because these problems are not what we think they are. They're a misidentification, misapplication, and they're a place where we are not allowing ourselves to access the potency, the depth, and the wealth of our being.
Hmm. The potency, the depth, and the wealth of our being.
Hmm.
That sounds pretty phenomenal to me.
Right? Me too. And if you've been trying to change the money thing for a while, is it possible the way you've been trying to go about it isn't what's required?
Hmm.
What if there's something totally different available and possible now?
Wow, that's so cool. And this can be one, this conversation can be one to put on a loop because it'll keep changing the energy around this topic over and over and over as you guys listen to it. So
Yeah, please.
beautiful.
And did you invite them to the Wealth Really class
Well, I did
online?
just before you got on, but I would like to do it again. So, um, in Geneva, Switzerland, and online all over the world, Gary Douglas, who Dane was talking about, and Dain himself are going to be co-facilitating a 3-day, let's call it intensive class, it's called Wealth Really, and it's going to be a very, very deep dive into this topic and into the consciousness of wealth and creating the life and future that you desire that includes you in it. So this was a taster, and I can't even imagine if this was a taster. I'm thrilled. I'm so excited for the class because this strain of energy is just formidable, and I just cannot wait to just keep creating more. I mean, even just talking you today with you today, I've learned so much. Like you put a whole bunch of things together energetically that, like you say, haven't been able to be put together before. And so I'm really grateful and I'm really excited to continue. So you are all
Me
invited
too.
to that.
You're all invited. Plus, we're gonna laugh a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
change a lot more with laughter than tears. So come, play. We'll have fun changing the world and everything wealth-wise together. Thank you,
Totally.
Miss
Thank
Julia,
you,
and thank you
Dane.
for all the beautiful people behind the scenes and the translators. You
Oh,
guys rock. Thank you so much.
thank you guys. Thank you so much, everybody. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, Dane. Bye,
Bye
everybody.
bye.